This week on Africa Weekly, we begin in Liberia, where we explore the practice of female genital mutilation, a practice that soon-to-be outgoing President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf fought unsuccessfully to ban. Then we head to Zambia, where maternal deaths still plague mothers when they deliver their babies. And finally, we take a look at the legacy of legendary Nigerian musician Fela Kuti, who died 20 years ago. Liberians headed to the polls to elect a new leader, with 20 candidates vying for the top job. Outgoing President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who served 2 terms, urged peaceful elections. In Kenya, opposition leader Raila Odinga is refusing to take part in the new election scheduled for the 26th of October. The August vote was annulled by the Supreme Court, citing widespread counting irregularities and mismanagement by election officials.
All indications are that the election scheduled for the 26th of October will be worse than the previous one.
Kenya's government banned protests in the centres of 3 major cities, including the capital Nairobi and Kisumu, where violent demonstrations have been staged against the country's electoral commission and the government. Nigeria carried out its first major prosecutions of suspects linked to the Boko Haram conflict at a military base behind closed doors in Kainji, in the central state of Niger. Over 1,600 detainees will go on trial. The jihadist group has killed at least 20,000 people since 2009, so the prosecutions are welcomed by many, but the military has been accused of arbitrary arrests and barring detainees from legal help. The World Health Organization has said there's a moderate risk that a plague outbreak in Madagascar may spread to other countries in the region. Since August, the outbreak of both bubonic plague and pneumonic plague has infected more than 500 people on the island, killing 54. The election to pick DR Congo's next president will not take place before early 2019, according to the Electoral Commission. Polls were due this year under a transitional deal aimed at avoiding fresh political bloodshed after President Joseph Kabila refused to step down when his second mandate ended in December. But the Independent National Electoral Commission said it needs another 504 days after the completion of an electoral census to prepare for the vote.
Esther was just 3 years old when she was subjected to female genital mutilation. Her sister nearly died from the same practice. Now, as a mother, she sent her 2 daughters away from their village in a bid to keep them safe.
I'm already a victim, so I don't want for my children to be a victim of FGM. That's why I take them from here and carry them in the town.
FGM involves the removal or cutting of the labia and clitoris. This can make sexual intercourse difficult and cause health problems like infections, complications during childbirth and, in rare cases, death. Secret women's societies, known as Sande, carry out FGM as part of a coming-of-age ritual. The tradition is deeply rooted, with half of Liberian women subjected to it. But groups like Women's Solidarity are fighting to ban the practice.
Some part of their body have been extracted, and they got rights to their body. So if you are extracting some part of my body, we say no, because my body belongs to me.
Liberia's first female president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, pledged to ban FGM as part of a domestic violence bill. But Liberia's gender minister says the disproportionate ratio of men to women in the legislature led to the FGM clause being removed.
Yes, they passed the bill, which she have not signed yet, but we strongly believe that that bill was watered down. They took off the portion on female genital mutilation. And that was a big blow to her.
With President Sirleaf's mandate drawing to a close, activists fear they've lost a good opportunity to stop FGM, and that it could be quite some time before the practice is confined to the history books.
When these twins celebrate their first birthday in about 6 months, it will be a bittersweet occasion. It'll mark the day their mother died. Kelly and Karen, named after their parents, now live with relatives. Their father visits them daily. He describes the moment when he saw his twins for the first time, but only to be told moments later that his wife had died.
So I asked, "Is she okay?" Then this doctor here holds me and says, "My brother, I'm sorry. Your wife is gone."
Karen died of an embolism. Her family didn't expect complications as she had already given birth to 3 kids. Karen's aunt is calling for greater awareness about maternal deaths during childbirth. She admits she initially struggled raising the twins and dealing with the grief.
The babies brought back the happiness, that put back the smile and everything. Though I still cry because the mother is the best person to look after her children.
A 2015 World Health Organization report says maternal mortality decreased 40% over the past 25 years. But here in Zambia, the figures are high, at 224 deaths per 100,000 births. Local doctors believe a lack of skill, poor infrastructure and a reliance on traditional medicine are to blame. Pre-existing medical conditions and ailments are major factors too.
The number one cause is from hemorrhage or bleeding. The number 2, we have got issues to do with hypertensive disorders, that is high blood pressures in pregnancy.
The Zambian government has expressed concern. The Catholic Church and NGOs have called for investigations into the issue. But for some, like Kelly and Karen, this outcry is too little, too late.
Rising Nigerian pop star Adekunle Gold is recording his second album. Among his inspirations are Ghanaian dance music and Indian harmonies, but above all, the sounds of Nigeria's legendary king of Afrobeat, Fela Kuti.
Fela was never afraid. Fela was fearless, and then I feel like Fela is definitely beyond the musician. Fela is activism himself. It's just everything, you know. Fela could have been the president, you know.
Fela, as he's known to fans, died 20 years ago. The maverick performer found fame in Africa in the 1970s and was a thorn in the side of the country's successive military dictatorships. He used music to protest against the corrupt elite and people's everyday struggles, and was thrown into jail several times for speaking out. For some, that integrity and passion is missing in musicians today.
They talk too much about femininity, the sensuality of women. They talk about butts, they talk about boobs, they talk about all sorts of sexuality of women. That's what they talk about now.
Yet, though the subject matter may have changed, young artists are still taking inspiration from Fela. 23-year-old music producer Chris Beats calls himself the king of Afro dance, the Nigerian music that has got millions dancing across Africa and the world. For him, rhythm is the most important thing, and that rhythm is Fela Kuti.
Afrobeat is what I grew up listening to, so there's no how. Even if I want to make EDM, I will still think Afrobeat. Even if I want to make hip hop, I will still think Afrobeat, because Afrobeat is who I am. You understand? So you can't take that factor off Chris Beat. So if I'm doing anything, I will still think it's like, okay, this is where I'm from. So it's always Afrobeat.
Every year, the Felabration Music Festival celebrates Fela Kuti's life and work with dozens of concerts in Lagos. 20 years after his death, organisers hope a new generation will discover his music and the political passions that inspired it.
Nigeria are headed to the 2018 World Cup finals after a winning goal by Arsenal Alex Iwobi in a 1-0 African qualifying victory over Zambia. Next week on Africa Weekly, residents of Zimbabwe are fearing the return of the 2008 economic crisis as price hikes and shortages of food and fuel hit the nation. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.